Chapter 1. It was raining heavily now. Torrents of black water drenched everything. It wasn't black, truth told. If the rough man leaning against the column had to guess, he'd say the water was blue. Deep blue, like most everything these days. Blue or black, no matter. It soaked everything clean through. It ran down the stone column against which he leaned, darkening its pale surface to slate. It ran onto and over his overcoat, though it couldn't turn the black of its hue any darker. It ran onto the top of the rough man's head, turning his thin, reddish-blonde hair to a dark brown. It was plastered over his skull now, lying limp against his forehead and almost touching his green eyes. Those eyes stared straight ahead. Yes, it was certainly raining. The Blue Duke had control over most everything these days, but not the weather. Not quite yet. Give it time, thought the rough man. A smile flashed across his narrow face. That smile was the most movement he'd made in the past 2 hours, since the train had come and gone, and he'd started waiting. He hated waiting. Inaction chafed like a rash. Nothing for it, however. Nothing to do but wait and see. Those green eyes had seen nothing and no one enter the station in these past 2 hours. A few people had left, but none had entered. No one had glanced twice at him. He didn't hate that. In fact, he liked it. Most eyes only lingered on his left ear. Its strange shape had a way of drawing everyone's gaze. Steel, even poor steel, passing through cartilage left strange shapes behind. The rough man's left hand slid from his pocket and reached toward that ear before he caught himself. It had healed, but the real wound had been his pride. A gust of wind brought a wave of water straight against his face. When those green eyes reopened, he saw what he'd been waiting for. Visibility was poor. He could only see a few dozen yards into Grant Park, but a shape moved against the dark green bushes and trees. A man, moving at an irregular pace, fast, slow, looking over his shoulder. Green eyes narrowed. Closer now came the quarry, dark cloak against the dark rain, pale-faced against the night. Yards away now. He reached the start of the stairs. When he was halfway up, the rough man spoke. "You are late." His voice was thin, almost thinner than the man himself. The newcomer gave a start, but recovered so quickly a lesser man wouldn't have seen. He stopped, one foot on the steps, hands in his pockets. "You're early," he replied. The rough man's head inclined a fraction. The newcomer's face was familiar. Crooked nose, wide eyes, large mouth. "The job's done?" 3 words. "Finished. Did you doubt?" The newcomer started upward yet again, 4 yards distant. His cloak gleamed in the dark. The rough man's mouth tightened. He spoke. "What of the Duke?" The newcomer's cloak shifted open. The rough man's gun was back beneath the cloak, and his right hand back in its pocket, before the 2 shots had finished echoing about the station's main hall. The newcomer fell straight back and down onto the rain-slick steps. A dull thump as the body hit the stone, and a rustle as it slid to the bottom. The man followed, wading through the rain, green eyes locked on the thing at the bottom of the steps. He knelt beside it. Long-fingered hands slid beneath the gleaming cloak, searching. Rain pooled in the corpse's open eyes. Familiar the face had been, but not exact. The steel bands over the rough man's heart eased a fraction. His hands found the label on the cloak. Green eyes scanned it. "Firth and Sons, 25 Ocean, our finest for yours." There was no blood on the cloak. These new versions didn't bleed, it seemed. His hands returned to their pockets. He stood. He spat on the upturned face. The guards would find it in the morning, but wouldn't know what to make of it. They rarely knew what to make of anything. Maybe one of the Duke's men would see, or know, but it wouldn't matter. Not now. It wouldn't change anything. The rough man walked into Grand Park, long legs taking him deep into the gloom amidst the pines and oaks. The train station loomed behind him, tons and tons of gray stone against the dark sky. The night swallowed him whole, and the station faded.